intrigued by your mind. I'm intrigued by your looks. I'm intrigued and beguiled. I gone and read all your books. Hi, and welcome to this podcast presentation of Mind the Future. My guest today is none other than Peter Shankman, an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and sought-after keynote speaker. Previously, Peter ran Geek Factory PR and is the founder of Help a Reporter Out, an incredibly successful resource that connects journalists with sources. He sold that endeavor to Vocus in 2010. Peter currently leads ShankMinds Breakthrough Network, which is an online mastermind of thought leaders and business experts, and he hosts a popular podcast on ADHD called Faster Than Normal. The podcast focuses on how ADHD can be used as a gift or a superpower rather than a hindrance. Some of Peter's customer service and social media clients have included Walt Disney World, Sheraton, American Express, Sprint, United Airlines, the U.S. Department of Defense, Snapple, and even NASA. Peter is also an avid skydiver, something that I think is quite important to mention, and it is something that I am both terrified of and intrigued by. So thank you so much for joining me, Peter.
Glad to be here.
Great. So you're sort of you could say you're sort of a bit of a master at connecting with brands and with people, and sometimes even have been known to connect with people randomly at airports. And it seems like these days many brands have sort of shifted from talking at people to with people. So can you talk a little bit about where you see that brand and consumer interaction heading into the future?
I think the whole concept of the brand and consumer conversation is one that's needed a refresh for quite some time. At the very core, people with resources distribute opportunities to people they trust. People with resources distribute opportunities to brands they trust. If you can be either one of those, the brand or the person with the resources, you're going to be able to gain the opportunity, right? And so a lot of times what companies tend to forget, and what corporations tend to forget, things like that, is that to do that properly, you need to be able to become trusted. And how do you get trusted? You get trusted by offering help, right? The biggest thing the brands can do at any given time is to solve a customer or client's problem. And they tend to forget that. Anyone who buys something, anyone who hires someone, anyone who goes into an airport or a McDonald's or whatever has a problem and they need it solved. And if you can solve that with the least amount of hassles and headaches, you will be remembered, not simply recalled. And the cool thing for brands and businesses is that the bar for customer experience is so low that it's pretty easy to do that. You don't need to be great. You just need to kind of suck a little less.
Right. And do you think brands are doing that? Are they moving into connecting that way with their customers, trying to solve their problems?
I think some are. I think that the majority of them are not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between sending out an email that says, we understand what you're doing. We understand how you're it's difficult times for all of us. We're here, but they don't actually say what they're going to do.
Right.
They haven't done anything along those lines, right? They just say that they're there. Well, show it, right? It's like what your parents used to say, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. And I feel like pretty much every email I get these days, it starts with, we're here for you during these times. And what does that mean? You're here for me. Are you going to pay my bills or
Exactly.
moral support? Yeah.
Well, what do you think about, I mean, as we are using more and more technology to sort of deal with things, what do you think about the use of AI when it comes to customer service?
AI has tremendous benefits. I personally hate talking to people. And if I can get through what I need to get through using AI, I'm all for it. But if I can't, I need to have a connection to a person. I don't want to have to jump through hoops. That's the key.
What are the areas that you think AI would actually make more sense than a human versus where does a human make more sense than AI?
A human makes more sense when the issue is time pressing or when the issue is more than just something that can be answered with yes or no or press 1, 2, or 3. And just because you're using AI doesn't give you permission to then put the person into a 5-hour queue to get a human being if they need it. And that's the biggest problem. I have no problem with AI. I'm a huge fan of it. As long as on the one time when I do need to talk to someone, it's doable.
Right. And you ran Geek Factory and also help a reporter out. What do you think about the future of PR? Where do you see it heading? Do you see it really evolving in sort of, 10, 20 years from now?
It has to evolve. I mean, I've been saying it's going to evolve for the past 30 years. And it hasn't really done that. I think we're moving towards a place where, again, had a professor once who told me that the best way to win everything is to be brilliant at the basics. If you can be brilliant at the basics, you can do everything. Yet, I don't see that. I still don't see companies. I still don't see PR firms, marketing firms that, I got an email last year, right before Mother's Day. Dear Peter, we know moms like you have it tough. It's like, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be slightly better than everyone else. The bar is so low. So low.
Well, it seems also like from consumer behavior point of view that, it used to be if a product was mentioned in a big magazine, I feel like it used to have a lot bigger impact. And now you can get a lot if you connect with an influencer or just an individual. Sometimes people who have like micro followings, brands still kind of choose to engage with them, which maybe is even cheaper for them. I don't know, but it seems like that personal, like the reviews and things like that seem to play a big impact in terms of what consumers are going to buy, as opposed to just going through like, this was recommended by this magazine.
A lot of what we're finding, in the movie Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter said, we covet what we know, right? And that's still very true. We covet what we know. I get information about things and learn about things, not so much from advertising. I mean, advertising might introduce me to it, but then I'm going to ask friends. And I'm going to go to these friends and find out what information I need, right? Does it work? Is it worth it? Whatever. And that's where I'm going to get my information. And more often than not, we covet what we know. And people don't do that. Or brands rather don't relate to that. You get the customers you want by being awesome to the customers you have, not by running out, ignoring the customers you have and trying to better deal and get new ones. I think if more brands realize that, they'd have a much better time, much easier time getting their clients. You be awesome to the customers you have. They're going to tell the other clients. And they're going to tell the customers you want every single time.
Right. Well, social media in general has been sort of dominating our lives for a few years now. I personally was like very resistant to joining until a friend sat me down, physically forced me to join Facebook. And now it's like we all kind of live in public. Do you think social media will continue sort of dominating our lives, or do you think it's going to change? Like, I remember like when we first started sort of having those social connections over the internet, we all wanted, I was excited to talk to strangers. And now it's all about these private groups and just your friends. So how do you think, what kind of changes do you think we can see from, expect to see from social media in the long run?
I think social isn't really going anywhere. The critical mass is too great, but I think that people are starting to get burned out, and they don't necessarily want to be in just the usual gaggle of idiots and people talking. I mean, this election cycle is in the U.S. is just a prime example. I have unfriended so many people just because I'm sick of their bullshit. Right? I don't need to hear it. I don't need to. I'm not going to change their mind. They're not going to change my mind. Right? It's not worth it. And so I think we're going to see people really dive into people they know and they care about and get closer to them. I think the concept of video calling has been, FaceTime and Zoom and things like that has gotten a tremendous boost from the pandemic. And so I think that we're going to be much more open to doing that. I see a lot more. My parents live 3 blocks away, and they're not the most tech. I mean, they're tech savvy to an extent, but they're still parents. Yet, not a day goes by where they're not FaceTiming my daughter that they're initiating, right? You don't have to walk them through it anymore. They get it. My dad's created a weekly Zoom call for the family. It's crazy, and I think that we've sort of accepted that. I was trying to. My daughter's 7. I was trying to explain to her a couple weeks ago about how had this happened in the 80s, here's what would have been different. We would have gotten our news once a day. Newspaper would have told us what was up. Maybe we would have listened to TV or the radio. We wouldn't have had the ability to see anyone. We really would have been lonely. I mean, she wouldn't, I would have teach her from math books. She wouldn't have her class on a Zoom call, things like that. So it's just this difference of sort of where we are and what we're doing. And we've, every situation that is difficult always tends to bring about the most change. And so the concept of social media, I think we'll see a change from, we're not going to care as much. I mean, there are some days where I don't even go on Facebook anymore. It's going to be much more about the intimacy of communication.
It's interesting too, because right now this is the most intimacy we can get, is have those video conversations and have to change out of our PJs maybe. But,
Are you wearing pants?
No comment. But, it's only, top up that really matters, right? But I think, but then there is like a different feel to when you are physically in front of a person, and we're sort of adjusting, and I wonder how much are we going to. Right now I'm seeing my doctor using telecommute or using a camera. Telemedicine, right. And which is okay, I think, for some of the concerns that I have. But I wonder, how important is that physical presence? I worry a little bit about that going away, because I do think it's
not going to go away. It's not going to go away entirely. It'll shift. Look, they shut down the subways in New York City for the first time ever, every night now between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. for disinfection. That's never happened before, right? And they've never shut down New York City subways. And so the premise of doing things that we used to do that have changed will shift, and will shift accordingly. But you're not going to see, my assistant had to go get her wisdom tooth out today. She went to a dentist.
Oh.
It's what you do, right? You're not going to be able to do that remotely. It's not like you're on the South Pole on an expedition. You have to take out your own appendix. There's still going to be norms. Some will change, but the majority of the norms are still going to be there.
Although I remember I was having this is before all of this happened, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine where we were planning on meeting up, and, we were chatting on Messenger about, setting up a time to meet up. And, but that devolved into just a chat, and a long one. And at one point he said, I guess why are we meeting? And that's sort of sad because I do think that interaction to me is very different. So I'm hoping.
Well, look, I mean, I'm the most introverted extrovert in the whole world, and that I love being on stage in front of 40,000 people, but I would kill myself at a dinner party with 6. So for me, I'm just really about, efficiency. I've been able to do more interviews over the past month than I have in God knows how long, all because of, just being home and being unable to move. So the key is to figure out how to use that without losing the intimacy of meetings. But again, it's intimacy of meetings that you want to have. I detest meetings, right? This is fine. I'm happy to use Zoom. Does that mean I don't want to see a girlfriend or, someone I'm dating or something? Of course not. It's a totally different world. I think if anything, this will help us eliminate the bullshit parts. Not everything has to be a goddamn meeting. Hell, not everything has to be an email.
Right. I agree with that. But there seems to be sort of the approach towards social media or even content seems to kind of change over time. So when people were starting out on YouTube, they were in their bedrooms, they had terrible lighting, but it had that sort of personal contact, very kind of authentic. And I think it moved into much more heavily produced content. And now even with talk show hosts, we're saying, a lot less producing, more personal. What do you think is going to take over?
There's nothing that will ever substitute for, I'm a huge Broadway fan, right? And we don't know when Broadway's going to reopen. And it's not, I might watch Hamilton as a movie, but it's not the same thing, right? It's, going with my parents and I was 7 years old to the theater, and it's still one of the highlights of my life. And I remember every time I did it, we did it almost weekly. One of the benefits of growing up in New York City. But I don't see that going away. It'll be interesting to see how it returns, but I don't see it going away.
Right. And, we're talking the field of journalism that has been experiencing a lot of pain for a long time. So, things from clickbait stories and headlines, overly subjective reporting, it seems like trusted media has really dropped. And of course, there's a lot of outlets, especially now, with the pandemic, have been suffering because of advertising loss. Where do you see journalism heading, and is there sort of an antidote on the way?
I think journalism will continue to flounder. It's difficult. It is a hard industry to make money from. It was all the way in the beginning. It certainly still is. I do believe that if we've gotten one good thing out of the current administration, it's that we've come to trust. Some of us have come to trust newspapers again. I have a subscription to the Washington Post and New York Times now that I never had before, or I haven't had for several years, because I want to make sure I'm getting facts, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think there's always going to be a place for trusted news sources. Everything else is going to splinter, and a lot of it will go away. There's only so much content that one can consume. I compare it almost to what it used to be when blogs came out. Everywhere in the world, there were everyone and their mother started a blog. And within 3 weeks after they started it, like 98% of them had abandoned it, right? Because only so many people are going to be able to read them.
Right.
So the key is, how do you find your audience? And again, it comes back to understanding your audience and doing the things that they want.
And how can newspapers better understand their audience?
For newspapers, it's difficult because, their audience is made up of so many different variables, but the best thing to do is communicate with them. Communicate with your audience in every step of the way. Ask if they like what they're getting. Ask how you can improve it. Take their shit seriously. Take the information you get seriously. Very few companies do that. They all send out these surveys. Please tell us what you think. How was your flight? How is this? How is that? The survey comes from, do not respond or we'll kill your children at, company name. Right. And then nothing ever happens. I mean, I tell the story of United Airlines sends me a survey after every single flight, and I fly constantly. And for 278 flights in a row, I answered the same way, which was on my next flight, please refer to me as Peter, Lord of the Skies. And it's not that I ever expect them to do that, but after 100, 150, 200 of these responses, I would love to call from someone in their marketing group and say, hey, asshole, we're never going to do that. Stop it. Right? But, nothing. And then, one day they heard someone, I guess from United, heard me speak at a conference where I told this story. And sure enough, that evening I'm flying home and they say, welcome Peter, Lord of the Skies. But it shouldn't have taken 278 calls and a conference. It should have, because if that's the case, then it sounds like they're being a little disingenuous. And if they're being disingenuous about that, what else are they being disingenuous about, right? So that's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely. You talk quite a bit about ADHD and sort of turning that into a superpower. Do you think, people have all sorts of different ways of thinking. Do you think in the future people will learn how to better deal with things like ADHD and other ways of thinking that will be their superpower? And
I think that what we're starting to understand is that ADHD and all forms of neurodiversity are gifts. And if you want to maintain your workforce and have the best employees, if you want to have the best relationships, if you want to have the best anything, you need a diverse staff and a diverse workforce. Diversity can no longer just mean skin color and sexual orientation. It has to mean different types of brains. Excuse me. Different types of brains. And so we're seeing that start to grow as well. We're seeing people and companies starting to understand that, hey, if I want to hire the smartest people, I need to make sure I'm doing that.
Right. So their differences for certain jobs could be a lot more suitable, right? Like they can be a virtue rather than, a hindrance, which is really how it's been thought of.
No question about it. And companies need to understand also that they can hire people in different ways. They can hire really, really talented people, but give them the right way to work. A lot of people with different types of brains, they prefer working at certain times, right? 2 a.m. I have tons of friends who love to work from like midnight to 8.
Right.
And that's not me, but they love that. And so, especially with what we've seen with working from home and everything, let your employees know that you will accommodate, as long as it doesn't drastically impact the business, and usually it doesn't, you will accommodate how they work. And you will do that in such a way that makes it easier for them. And then they're going to want to stay. And not only that, but they're going to bring in the people who are the most beneficial to your company as well.
Right. I definitely think that there has been sort of this very rigid way of thinking, like 9 to 5, or, if you're lucky, usually it's later hours and less pay, but people don't necessarily all work that way, and their brains are different. How do they filter how do they set up their systems so that they can find those people and know how they prefer to work and what their sort of unique brains can do?
I think a lot of it comes down to being understanding and being willing to listen, and not assuming that the first person you meet is going to have all the answers. You'd have to talk to a lot of people, but you're going to find that, if you position yourself as neurodiverse friendly, position the company as neurodiverse friendly, word's going to get around, and these people are going to come to you. 10 years ago, no one talked about ADHD. 20 years ago, no one talked about ADHD. Now, we wear it on our shirts, right? So, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what my shirt actually says. That it says, ask me about my attention deficit disorder, or pie, or what does it say? Or my cat, a dog. I have a bike. Do you like TV? I saw a rock. Hi. And it's
perfect.
And we wear it now as badges of honor. And so it's no longer this thing that we hide, and so if you want to be noticed by the neurodiverse community, be aware of that and be okay with that.
Right. Productivity is something that's on a lot of people's minds, especially as they work from home, but always has been. So, and these days there's a lot of tech gadgets, meditation apps, neurotropics, and they're all being sort of marketed as being helpful with productivity, focusing, and all that kind of stuff. Where do you see that trend going?
I think that we'll use the tools that are beneficial to us, and the rest will go away. I have an Apple Watch and I have the Aura Ring, and that tracks everything about me, from my sleep to everything, with the goal that I want to be able to be the best I possibly can. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I want to be good at my life. I want to live a healthy life, everything. So having that knowledge and that data is useful to me. Other things, not so much. I know that I'm not really good at meditation. My meditation comes when I'm on my bike, right? When I'm running, that's my meditation. So I need to have that. Mm-hmm. Other people need different things, but yeah, it's really whatever works for you.
Well, there's this movement, I feel, towards sort of being an optimized human being. And because we have all this technology where we can track a lot of things, there's people there's people taking it very far. And then there's people who, is that good for us as human beings to optimize so fully, or?
I think we need to optimize the best way we possibly can. But I think we also need to understand that there's a moment where we're going to need to sort of just chill. Sometimes the best optimization I could possibly get is lying on my couch and watching King of the Hill for 6 hours, right? And that is an awesome way to live. I enjoy that, right? I want to do more of that. And so, but I know that for me, that's a recharge, right? If I did it all the time, it wouldn't benefit me. I'd run out of gas doing that. So, it's a variety of things that work, and a variety of things that you can do that help you and make you more productive, but you can never forget to take the time you need to just chill. That's part of growth too. I look at all these people, I have a lot of people in my life who are, I have to work. I have this, I have that, I have this call, I have that call. Oh my God, I'm so busy. You're a fucking idiot. Right? You're a fucking idiot. How can you possibly help other people if you're not going to sit there and take time for yourself first?
Right. Well, and some of the best ideas, I think people often say, come in the shower, and there's a reason for that. Yeah. Or, riding your bike or doing something like that, or even when you're bored. I mean, I think a lot of great ideas actually came out of boredom.
No question.
And if you're always doing something, can't get there. Do you see a future where we might be able to upload our brains, and what do you think that will mean for society?
I think we're talking about year million at this point, the sort of quintessential moment, but I hope so. I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool. I don't necessarily see it happening tomorrow, but, it defines the question of what is consciousness, right? Am I conscious because I have a brain and a body, or, would I be just as conscious if my brain was in a jar like Futurama? I don't know the answer to that. I think that I'm here for a reason. As long as I am, I'll continue to do whatever it is that I do. And then we'll see what happens. I've just got a massive echo. Did you get an echo on your side?
No, but I lost you for 1 second. But no echo.
So yeah, I think that whatever that is, I'll just keep doing.
I wonder, because if we are able to upload our brains, that means we could technically live forever. And I think we've also got, we can replace, even our physical bodies could potentially live for a very long time because we can replace organs.
Really want to?
Well, that's the question. I don't know that I do.
Right now, there are days when I don't want to live past 3 p.m. Look at what's going on in the world right now, right? I don't think I'd really want to live forever.
Well, that will be sort of an interesting thing, because there is such beyond the technology being available, there is such a moral and just emotional side to it. And maybe we weren't meant to live these crazy amounts of time.
I've watched, what's the movie on Netflix? Something about skins. They go into other people's skins, and that's how they continue to upload their consciousness. I don't remember. Good movie, but again, I don't necessarily know if we need that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there is a part of us that is obviously, we're already kind of cyborgs, right? We store so much on our phones and we rely so much on our devices. There is an argument that we are part cyborg. Would you say that's true?
We need to rewatch Johnny Mnemonic. Horrible film, but a great book.
Really? Okay. Well, you know, at a certain point, as some of that technology develops and we get like, you know, the contact lenses and maybe like implants into your, I mean, would you get an implant into your brain that you can then
Tomorrow.
function like, why not?
No, I would tomorrow.
Oh, you would. Oh, you would. Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you?
I mean, I want the RFID chip in my hand that can open doors just so I can do the Vader thing and, you know, open the, you know, I totally want that. I think that anything that helps us and that makes our lives easier. I mean, you know, I joke that the only time you really have to use cash anymore is for drug dealers. You know, what other reason is there to use cash? You know, everyone takes credit cards by phone. I don't even need a credit card to, you know, hold my phone up and it's connect to Apple Pay or whatever. So, you know, for what reason do you need cash? For what reason do you need it? So, yeah, if I could do that just by waving my hand or doing it, I mean, the downside though is that you don't know where things are coming from. I back when Clear, the Clear was the company that, you know, for the airlines where you do your retina scan. Well, they went. I joined them the second they came by. The second they started, and it was great. But then they shut down before they relaunched. And somewhere out there are my retinas, right? My retinas are with this. I don't know who owns them. Where are my retinas, right? So it's those kind of questions in terms of, you know, what's supposed to happen next. I don't know the answer.
That's personally something that does scare me and makes me kind of shy away from, you know, retinas. And I do believe in cash because I don't believe in, I mean, I'm not a drug dealer to my knowledge, but the idea of having something that can't be tracked, I think, even though it is obviously often used not in the best ways, I think it's also still a fundamental sort of freedom. And we don't know, you know, our government might be okay today, but we have no idea where it's heading tomorrow. And then all that data also about your consumer purchases and everything, like the idea of that there's always a trail about you, it scares me personally.
Yeah, I understand that. But, you know, on the flip side, privacy died 30 years ago. You know, the best thing we can do is just sort of accept it.
Yeah, I struggle with that, but at the same time, the person that I was, you know, 30 years ago, whenever or before social media, was extremely private. And the idea that I'm even as public as I am, and I'm not that public, but I am a lot more, I'm shocked by that because obviously my understanding of privacy has changed as well.
Well, it's you know, everyone's has, but it's the premise of, you know, it was considered almost incomprehensible to take your old Polaroid camera and take nude photos and give them to someone, right? But we are, you know, everyone has taken a nude and sent it to someone.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. I'm sure you're, yeah. But you know, it's the okay. Well, you know, you get on that. No, it's the premise that everyone's done that. So the concept of privacy has shifted, but what's also shifted is our understanding of what privacy means.
Absolutely.
Right. You know, I'm sure that my God knows how many times my passwords, you know, everything happens like that, right? So if that's the case, it's out there. So, you know, there was a data breach at Equifax last year. We're all still waiting on that, you know, money we were promised to monitor our credit reports. We'll never get it. We know that. We'll never get it. So it comes down to being able to, you know, do better on our part and on their part. And it's very hard. Everyone thinks it's very easy to hold a big company accountable. It's actually it's really hard to hold a big company accountable, right? Unless you start creating actual punishments for the people running the companies. Like you find a company, great, the company takes a hit, their stock goes down a little bit, but it rebounds. You got to start finding the people in charge, right? When Equinox had a breach, you know, the CEO should have been fined $50 million. Do that, and you're going to see a much stronger desire for security.
Absolutely. And that is where, regulation should come in place, is about protecting people when people can't necessarily protect themselves.
Good question.
I wanted to ask you, since you hold a seat on the NASA Education and Outreach Council, what do you think NASA's role will be like 20, 50 years from now, especially considering, we've got people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos who are building their own rockets privately?
Well, the council was actually disbanded a couple of years ago. But I was on it and it was wonderful. I think that NASA is always going to play a part. They are the administration that requires that they have to give approval to anything that leaves the atmosphere. That being said, I'm for privatization because you can do things a lot faster in privatization. So it's a good start and a good way to start getting us to where we need to be, which is not just off this planet or on different planets, but out of our solar system. We need to go out of our galaxy. We need to find new galaxies. We need to, find new places to explore. The whole purpose of being alive, in my opinion, is to explore and discover. And we need to ramp that up big time.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, people talk a lot about, it's been a long conversation about funding to NASA and how, it costs a lot of money to do this stuff. And at the same time, there's a lot of other things that need funding. But at the same time, it feels to me that something like NASA, it serves our human mission of learning and of discovering things, which I think is quite an important role as human beings that we play and what makes us different.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're going to see the desire for discovery rooted in strong science is not going to go away.
Right. How do you think people should prepare for the future, and can they prepare for the future?
I think we should keep learning. The people who stop learning are usually the ones who are left by the sidelines.
Right. I've noticed that with my remote control. I used to be really great at operating remote controls, and I noticed, and I would see, other people like my parents or my grandparents kind of struggling. And then one day I found myself unable to operate a remote control because I stopped learning how to do that.
Yeah.
On a very basic level.
Yeah.
And last question for you. What are you being Peter Shankman, personally most excited about in terms of the future?
So I think what I'm excited about for the future is hopefully we're going to get back to a place where we respect science again and where we believe in science and where we don't see education as a bad thing and don't see intelligence as a bad thing. I really hope we get back there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Peter.
My pleasure. It was always great to talk to you.
Thank you. Great to talk to you too.